I'll never forget the day I realized someone I trusted completely had been using me all along. And when I found out, I made sure they paid in ways they still don't fully understand. My name is Leslie, and this is the story of how I turned heartbreak into my greatest victory. It started in my little apartment in Washington, D.C., a cozy space filled with memories. The walls were lined with photos from trips I'd taken, snapshots of sunsets over Santorini, laughter shared on a beach in Thailand, quiet mornings spent wandering through Parisian streets. Every piece of furniture, every knick-knack told a story. But that summer, everything was about to change. I had been offered an incredible opportunity, a year-long position teaching English in Spain. It wasn't just a job. It felt like destiny calling me to explore more of the world. The only catch? Leaving behind Liam, my boyfriend of 2 years. We'd always talked about building a life together, but we'd been navigating the challenges of long distance for months already. He lived in Chicago while I stayed in D.C., and though it wasn't perfect, we made it work. Or so I thought. When I told him about Spain, he didn't hesitate. "Go," he said, his voice steady, his smile warm. "This is your dream. Once you're back, we'll figure things out. You can move to Chicago, and we'll finally be together." I believed him. How could I not? Liam had this way of making everything sound so simple, so certain. He seemed genuinely supportive, even helping me pack up my apartment as my lease came to an end. Downsizing felt right. After all, I wouldn't need much living abroad for a year. I sold most of my furniture, donated clothes I no longer wore, and kept only what mattered. Sentimental items, essentials, and a few expensive electronics. A game console, a JBL speaker, and my prized Hue Lights. The ones that turned my tiny apartment into a kaleidoscope of colors whenever I needed a pick-me-up. Liam offered to store my things while I was gone. At first, I hesitated. Was it too much to ask? But he insisted, brushing off my concerns with a laugh. "It's no big deal," he said. "Besides, think of it as motivation for us to reunite sooner." His words made me smile, chasing away any lingering doubts. I trusted him completely. Looking back now, I see the cracks I missed then. There were moments when his charm slipped, revealing something sharper underneath. Like the time I mentioned wanting to apply for a promotion at work before leaving for Spain. Instead of encouragement, he shrugged and said, "Do you really need another responsibility right now?" Or the vague promises he made about logistics. How many times did he say, "We'll figure it out later," without ever offering specifics? And then there were the arguments, small but frequent, where his patience would evaporate if I pushed too hard or asked too many questions. Still, none of that prepared me for what came next. Before flying out to Spain, I visited Liam in Chicago one last time. That week and a half should have been magical, a chance to reconnect and solidify our plans for the future. But instead, tension simmered beneath the surface. Conversations that used to flow effortlessly became stilted. Arguments erupted over trivial things, like dinner reservations or whose turn it was to do dishes. Each disagreement left me feeling uneasy, though I tried to shake it off. After all, long-distance relationships are hard. Surely we could weather this rough patch and come out stronger on the other side. But deep down, something shifted during those days. The man who once seemed so supportive now struck me as distant, almost indifferent. On my final night in Chicago, we sat on his couch, surrounded by boxes of my belongings he'd agreed to keep safe. I looked at him, searching for reassurance, but his eyes avoided mine. For the first time, I wondered if trusting him with my things and my heart had been a mistake. Little did I know that decision would set the stage for his eventual betrayal. As I boarded my flight to Spain, clutching a suitcase filled with essentials and dreams, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. What I didn't realize was just how far Liam would go to take advantage of my trust, and how deeply it would hurt when I discovered the truth. As the plane ascended, I stared out the window, replaying our goodbye in my mind. Something about the way Liam hugged me felt hollow. Too quick, too final. I shook my head, chiding myself for overthinking. But as the hours ticked by and my phone remained eerily silent, no texts, no calls, I began to wonder, had I imagined the warmth in his promises? Or was I already losing him? The plane touched down in Barcelona, and for a moment I let myself believe that the heaviness in my chest was just jet lag. The city stretched out before me, vibrant and alive. But as I navigated the unfamiliar streets to my new apartment, the silence on my phone gnawed at me. No message from Liam. No safe travels or thinking of you. Just nothing. At first, I told myself he was busy. Work must have been hectic, maybe his phone died. But days turned into weeks, and still there was no word. When I finally worked up the courage to text him casual, light-hearted messages about how beautiful Spain was, he replied with one-word answers. Cool. Nice. Glad to hear it. Each response felt colder than the last, like he was pulling away bit by bit without ever saying why. Then came the day when even those hollow replies stopped altogether. My texts went unanswered. My calls went straight to voicemail. I tried convincing myself it wasn't personal, that maybe something had happened, but deep down I knew better. This silence wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. One morning, as I sat alone in my tiny apartment overlooking a narrow alleyway, my phone buzzed. For a brief, hopeful second, my heart leapt. But when I opened the message, the words hit me like a punch to the gut. Hey, Leslie, I think we both know this isn't working. Long distance was hard enough before, and now with everything going on, I just can't keep pretending anymore. It's over. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. Over? Just like that? No explanation. No apology. Not even the decency to say it to my face. And then, as if twisting the knife further, he added, Also, can we figure out what to do with your stuff? Oh, and don't forget, I still owe you $400. My vision blurred, tears spilling onto the cracked screen. How could he reduce 2 years of my life to such a cold, transactional exchange? I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead, I typed back a shaky reply. Fine, let's settle this. But settling anything with Liam proved impossible. He dodged my attempts to discuss logistics, ignoring my texts and blocking me on every platform we'd once used to stay connected. Instagram, WhatsApp, Venmo, even Splitwise, where I'd lent him money for groceries months ago. Every avenue closed off, leaving me stranded in a foreign country with no support system and no way to reclaim what was mine. The loneliness was suffocating. Back home, I'd always prided myself on being independent, but here, surrounded by people speaking a language I barely understood, I felt utterly lost. Simple tasks like grocery shopping became monumental challenges. Conversations with locals left me flustered and frustrated, their sympathetic smiles only making me feel more pathetic. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, replaying memories of Liam and me. The laughter, the promises, the moments that now seemed hollow and false. And yet, despite everything, part of me refused to give up entirely. If nothing else, I deserved closure. So, after months of struggling, I made the decision to cut my time in Spain short and return to the U.S. early. Moving to Chicago felt like the logical next step. It was closer to family, offered better job prospects, and gave me a chance to confront Liam face to face. When I arrived in Chicago, I reached out again, this time through mutual friends. One of them agreed to act as a go-between, delivering my sentimental items to me while brokering the return of the rest. But when the box arrived, it was missing nearly everything valuable. The game console, the JBL speaker, and worst of all, my Hue Lights. All that remained were trinkets and mementos, things too insignificant to matter. Furious, I tracked Liam down in person. We crossed paths outside his condo one evening, and I approached him directly. "Where are my things?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. He barely glanced at me, shoving his hands into his pockets. "What things?" "The lights, the speaker, everything you promised to return." He shrugged, his expression unreadable. Haven't seen them. It took every ounce of self-control not to slap him right then and there. Don't play dumb, I snapped. You installed them in your place. I know you did. For a split second, something flickered across his face. Guilt? Panic? Whatever it was, it vanished quickly. Look, Leslie, he said, his tone dismissive. If you're that desperate for some old lights, buy new ones. Stop wasting my time. And with that, he walked away, leaving me standing there, fuming. That night, I lay awake, plotting how to get back at him. Not just for the stolen items, but for the betrayal, the humiliation, the sheer audacity of acting like none of it mattered. A few weeks later, as I unpacked boxes in my new apartment, I noticed something odd. While setting up replacements for my stolen Hue Lights, I realized I was still connected to the originals, the ones Liam had taken. At first, I thought it was a glitch. I tapped the app absently, turning them off. Seconds later, they flickered back on. Confused, I turned them off again and watched as they lit up once more. A slow smile spread across my face as realization dawned. This wasn't a glitch. It was an opportunity. Over the next few days, I studied Liam's habits. Mutual friends mentioned he rarely woke up before noon, thanks to blackout curtains designed to block out sunlight. His sensitivity to light during sleep was legendary among our circle. Armed with this knowledge, I began experimenting cautiously, testing how far I could push without tipping him off. Each morning at exactly 7 a.m., I activated the lights remotely, watching gleefully as they illuminated his condo. A few minutes later, they'd turn off again, only to repeat the cycle sporadically throughout the week. Sometimes they'd flicker softly, other times they'd blaze brightly. Varying the timing and intensity kept him guessing, planting seeds of paranoia in his mind. Was it faulty wiring, a neighbor's prank, or something else entirely? As the weeks passed, rumors began circulating among our mutual friends. They noticed changes in Liam's behavior. He grew irritable, snapping at coworkers and canceling plans last minute. His usual charm faded, replaced by defensiveness and frustration. Part of me wondered if he suspected someone was messing with him, but he couldn't prove it. And honestly, that uncertainty was half the fun. But just as I started to revel in my newfound power, something unexpected happened. One evening, as I scrolled through social media, I saw a post from one of our mutual friends tagging Liam in a photo captioned, "Morning person now?" Beneath it, comments poured in teasing him about his sudden early risings. Liam's response caught me off guard. Wish I could sleep in like I used to. Something weird is going on. Suddenly, my stomach tightened. Had I pushed too far? Did he suspect me? Worse yet, was he planning to retaliate? That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. It was a text from an unknown number. "Whoever you are, stop messing with my lights. You're not funny." My blood ran cold. Somehow, Liam had found a way to trace the disruptions back to me, or so he thought. But how much did he really know? And what would he do next? The text from the unknown number lingered on my screen, taunting me. "Whoever you are, stop messing with my lights. You're not funny." My heart raced as I stared at the words, replaying them in my mind. Had Liam traced the disruptions back to me? Or was this just a bluff, a desperate attempt to scare off whoever he thought was behind it? I didn't respond. Instead, I sat there frozen, my fingers hovering over the phone, debating whether to delete the message or save it as evidence of his unraveling. In the end, I did neither. I turned off my phone and went to bed, but sleep eluded me. Every creak of the apartment felt louder than usual, every shadow darker. For the first time since I'd started this game, doubt crept in. What if he figured it out? What if he came after me? But the next morning, something unexpected happened. As I sipped coffee and scrolled through social media, my roommate walked into the kitchen holding a box. "This is for you," she said, placing it on the counter. Liam dropped it off earlier. My stomach clenched. "He just showed up?" She nodded, her expression unreadable. "Yeah, Said there'd been a mix-up and he wanted to clear things up. Seemed pretty eager to get rid of it, actually. I hesitated before opening the box, half expecting another empty gesture. But inside were my Hue Lights, the ones I'd spent weeks tormenting him with. They were all there, neatly packed along with the speaker and even the games I'd almost forgotten about. I ran my fingers over the items, relief washing over me, but also curiosity. Why now? Why so suddenly? Later that day, I asked my roommate more questions about their encounter. She described Liam's demeanor, flustered, agitated, like he couldn't wait to be done with the whole thing. He kept glancing around, like he thought someone was watching him, she said, and when I mentioned your name, he practically flinched. That detail sent a thrill through me. Flinching, the great Liam, reduced to flinching at the mere mention of me. It was exactly what I'd hoped for, and yet it wasn't enough. Not entirely. I wanted to see his face, to witness his downfall firsthand. But knowing he'd been rattled, that he'd scrambled to return my belongings because he suspected I was onto him, was its own kind of victory. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, that maybe I'd let him off too easily. So, later that night, I decided to leave one final breadcrumb. Using the app, I connected briefly to the Hue Lights again, turning them on for a few seconds before disconnecting completely. If he realized I'd still had access even after getting them back, it would drive him mad, wondering how far my reach extended. And then silence. No texts, no calls, no attempts to confront me further. Whatever paranoia I'd planted in his mind seemed to take root, leaving him uncertain and uneasy. Mutual friends reported that he'd become quieter, more withdrawn, avoiding conversations about me altogether. Rumors swirled, each one chipping away at the carefully constructed image of confidence he'd once projected. With the lights back in my possession, I allowed myself a moment of triumph. Sitting cross-legged on my living room floor, I plugged them in and watched as they bathed the room in soft, shifting colors. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace, not just because I'd reclaimed what was mine, but because I'd proven something to myself. I wasn't powerless. Far from it. As the days passed, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the loneliness, the anger, they'd all shaped me in ways I hadn't anticipated. Yes, I'd enjoyed outsmarting Liam, relished the satisfaction of turning his own arrogance against him. But more importantly, I'd learned how resilient I could be, how strong I was capable of becoming when pushed to my limits. If I'm being honest, part of me wonders what others would have done in my place. Would they have taken the same route I did, playing a subtle game of psychological warfare? Or would they have sought revenge in a different way, something bolder, louder, more direct? So here's my question to you. If you found yourself in my shoes, what would your perfect revenge look like? Before I close this chapter of my life, though, there's one last thing I need to share. A postscript, if you will. When I reconnected to the Hue Lights that final time, I didn't do it randomly. I left traces, digital footprints linking my actions to his devices, enough to make him wonder if I was still watching, still waiting. Because sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't the act itself. It's the lingering uncertainty, the nagging fear that no matter how hard you try to move on, someone might always be one step ahead. Weeks later, as I scrolled through Instagram late at night, I saw a story posted by one of our mutual friends. It was a screenshot of a group chat, and in it, Liam had written a single line. "Do you think Leslie knows?" My lips curved into a smile as I set my phone down. "Oh, Liam, I know everything.